I'm really getting tired of playing with myself on the couch. I just can't make up my mind on what to do. What should I start playing? Army of Two! Army of Two.
Wow, that sounds great. What all does it include?
Co-op multiplayer third-person shooting action, non-stop cooperative combat, 6 hours of gameplay, cool cutscenes. Shitty ending.
I'd like to see him come back from that. Bro, there's no way. He's dead.
You can put gold on the guns! So dap up your homies
Dap me up.
and go reserve your copy of Army of Two today.
Army of Two.
Alright, let's go.
Why don't you take a look at yours and see if you can figure it out on your own?
Oh my god! 落ち着いて!
In the late 2000s, I think we were in the middle of what me and a lot of other people would consider the brown and gray military shooter phase. You probably know the one I'm talking about. We had successful popular games like Gears of War and Call of Duty Modern Warfare popping up, and every developer and their publisher seemed like they wanted to get a piece of that military shooter pie. Fast forward to 2008 when we get Army of Two, a co-op multiplayer third-person shooter. You can do it on the couch or you can do it online, unless it's in 2021 because the online servers are down.
3, 2, 1, fire!
Dude, I fucking stuck with him. I can't shoot anything.
Some of you, like me, may have never touched this game. Back in 2008, I was probably playing some weird Beyond MMO, and I didn't even have a console at the time to run this, so I wasn't exactly a big fan of it. But I'm sure somebody's right here in the comments right now saying something like, "Oh dude, this game was so underrated, I just remembered it, and I saw your video, and dude, this is such a good video, I'm gonna hit the like button." But seriously, if you do like this video, you should do that, because it helps me out a good bit. So in Army of Two, you play as two mercenary bad boys, Salem and Rios, and instead of being in a game where you're fighting in an army, you're quite literally an army of two people. Two independent military contractors doing some of the behind-the-scenes work that eventually seems to go pear-shaped, and you, as a mercenary, are being blamed for this. During this process, the military and the government officials are trying to make normalizing private contractors to replace military a normal thing.
Hear about this bill they're talking about?
What bill?
To privatize the military. You know, they want to replace the entire army with contractors like us.
It ain't gonna pass.
But then you got the ops, and they're like, nah, we can't do that because look at these two guys. They're doing bad, like, treason type of stuff, but you're not actually. But all you're trying to do is secure the bag. Always trying to keep the little man down. Except they're not little. Your guys are like big, massive. Like, they don't skip leg day. They don't skip arm day. They don't skip a day. Working out 24/7.
You know how fucking strong our characters are?
If Army of Two was a person, it would probably be like a middle-aged dad on his way to work downing Monster Energy while some obscure rap/old rock songs banging through the subwoofers. It takes itself way too seriously, and I kinda love it for that because it just has no self-awareness, and it's a game that only could have came out in 2008.
You see, war isn't what it used to be. The rules of engagement don't apply anymore. Time is running, and we see that private corporations are better and more adept to handling this kind of threat. Put it simply, if the military isn't able to take care of business,
You get these over-the-top, ridiculous cutscenes. The two characters are always bantering about whatever.
Hey, Tice, who do you think's the best rapper in the Wu-Tang Clan?
Bruh.
Elliot, we just got set up to kill a U.S. senator. Our careers are over, and we're in a life and death situation. Why are you asking me this shit right now?
A lot of people say it's the RZA, but I kind of like Ghostface Killah. And so, actually, I don't think I ever heard the You Got album. Did you hear that?
They'll trip each other up going into elevators or doorways, even if you're in the middle of a serious mission. And there's even a function to dap each other up.
Dap me up.
Yeah, it's gonna dap me up, but yo, homie, stop shooting, dap me up.
You can also do like an aggressive headbutt type of thing too if your AI partner's acting up and glitching like he was doing to me a few times in the game. It's a military shooter, so you're going to be out in a variety of military environments. You know, the typical war-torn Middle Eastern city that every other military shooter around this time period was doing. It mixes up the variety a little bit. I wouldn't really say the level variety is too much to write home about. They even managed to make Florida look brown and gray, but then again, I guess Florida is kind of brown and gray, isn't it? Shout out to Florida. Please don't, Floridians, don't dislike my video. The level design takes place in these big open arena style areas, allowing you to do some cool cooperative combat. A big focus in this game is this aggro mechanic where one player is taking all the heat based on how aggressive or loud he's playing. I would be doing quotation marks, but I got a drink in my hand. And the other player who isn't taking the heat from their big gun shooting action will be the one that can do like flanking, cooperative maneuvers like that, or maybe running to an objective unseen. There's a lot of times I'll get lost in these maps. I won't be sure where to go or where the objective is to complete or push the button to open the door type of deal. And I feel like this is a product of the time. A lot of games didn't do this very well around its generation. Luckily, the developers did think of this and they put in a cum shot. Luckily, the developers thought of this and they put in a compass function that kind of points you in the right direction when you get lost. But this doesn't always seem to be completely accurate. There were times where I would turn it on and it still wouldn't show me where the objective exactly was, but it wasn't too big of a deal. But it did hang up my game quite frequently. Even in split screen when I was playing with a friend, we were both kind of like, dude, I don't know where to go. And after about 15 minutes, we finally remembered, oh yeah, there's a thing that turns your game into like a blue thermal screen and kind of points you in the right direction. I guess we should use that.
Tell me, what am I gonna do with all this money? It's too much cash, it's coming too fast.
This is a linear story-driven game, so these levels are going to give you a certain amount of objectives to complete in that level, some of them optional, some of them mandatory, but all of them, or almost all of them, granting you a cash bonus as a reward upon completion. You can use this cash after or sometimes during the levels to do some mid-mission shopping where you can buy and customize your weapons and gear. And for a random third-person shooter in 2008, there's actually a surprising amount of customization on hand here, and they all have stat-changing performance bonuses depending on the attachment you choose. That was a good stutter. You know, you can change out things like your grip, barrel, sight, stock, you know, basic weapon stuff. There's this kind of funny upgrade quirk to some of the weapons where you can only get to like barrel number 3 if you buy barrel number 1 and barrel 2. So just imagine going into a gunsmith and being like, man, I want the strongest upgrade. I want the best barrel I can put on my pistol, right? And then he says, well, sorry, you're gonna have to put barrel number 1 and 2 on the pistol before you can fit 3 on there. Other than the quirky video gaminess of that function, it's pretty standard upgrade stuff. There's also an option to bling out the camo on your gun because, of course, there is in this game. This isn't just cosmetic, this actually gives you more aggro. So when you're out on the battlefield, the boys know that you're talking smack and you want them to come towards you. I said smack instead of shit, please don't demonetize me. After you blinged out your freedom pistol, you're back to the combat, which can be hit or miss, honestly. If your gun's too close or against an obstacle, you'll completely miss them, and if you're shooting them from too far, you won't be able to hit them at all. At least with my experience with the guns I used, they could just be wildly inaccurate for whatever reason. I bought the minigun, which was like the second most expensive gun in the game, and it's just completely useless from a distance. As well as this Desert Eagle I was using, just couldn't hit him from a certain range. And even if you're at a reasonable distance, like I was with this one enemy on a staircase that was shooting me with an RPG that for some reason refused to shoot me from the angle I was at unless I was right in front of him, you can just see where I was just obviously missing his bullets, and I don't know why. I said missing his bullets, I meant missing my bullets, oops. I just can't be bothered to re-record any of this. You get what you get. If you're still watching the video at this point, I don't think you care. I don't even know why you're still here, dude. The enemy AI is okay, but I feel like they could have taken advantage of their environment a little better. A lot of times they'll just kind of hide behind cover and you'll be playing the wait for them to poke their head out to shoot them game that you do in most shooters. There isn't really anything revolutionary about the way the AI operates, and I would know because I have new revolutionary games to compare it to, like Cyberpunk 2077 with its incredibly advanced AI system. That's what we call a joke. One thing that did kind of genuinely surprise me was my teammate AI. See, there's different functions you can do with your teammate in this game, like lift them up to give them a boost and take out some enemies before you guys try to go through an area. And the cool thing is that the AI partner will actually do this too. It's like you won't be the only one doing certain things to clear out objectives. Like, not always. Sometimes he'll get really confused and just kind of not do anything. Like, there'll be enemies directly in his line of sight, and for some reason he'll just be like, nah, I'm not gonna shoot him. Your teammate will even grab you and drag you to a safe spot to pick you up whenever you get downed. Again, this doesn't always work right, most notably in the last level of the game, where you would just keep dragging me in the middle of the hallway and getting blown up with this dude shooting RPGs and throwing grenades.
Bruh. Bruh.
Serious? Serious?
But hey man, A for effort, I guess. Yo, that's my chair, dog. Great, now I'm sitting on a cat. Oh, don't tell me you unplugged my mic. Okay, you didn't? Cool. The movement of your character feels pretty weighty, and the cover system works fine. You can blind fire over it, you can vault over it, but there was a lot of shit. But there was a lot of times where I would try to do something like vault through a window or something, and I just really couldn't, which was a little disappointing and limiting to the movement, but overall the controls and the way you play feels pretty good, aside from some awkward gunplay, which was admittedly still a lot better than Kane and Lynch 2. There's a few set piece moments in this game that are pretty cool. There's also this quote-unquote mechanic where you go back to back with your teammate. This is where you guys, both of you, stand out in the open and just literally go back to back with each other, mowing down hordes of enemies while you're just like in this open courtyard, which it's one of the most video gamey things you could do. I think this was kind of just more like a PR marketing gimmick than anything, to get people to be like, whoa dude, that looks pretty cool. And it does look pretty cool, but this is just something they kind of peppered in through the game, and once you've done it once, you've kind of done it every time. But hey man, it was something, right? So with everything we've discussed so far, you would think we have a recipe for a pretty compelling third-person co-op multiplayer military shooter experience, right? And we do, but that doesn't come without some huge flaws that I found in the later half of the game. First off, this game took me about 6 hours to complete, and that's including all of the multiple times that I had to restart a mission due to failing it or having just some weird glitch that soft-locked me out of completing the rest of the level. The glitches and soft-locking weren't too prevalent, but they were there quite a few times. Secondly, if there's two things I can't stand in a game, it's padding and artificial difficulty, and Army of Two manages to do these two things in spades. I can use this China mission and basically the rest of the game as an example after the second half. So you start off this mission by blowing up a bridge to stop this convoy from passing, and looks pretty cool. It's a nice little set piece, and you kind of move your way through the forest to keep progressing, and then you have a little vehicle section, which is fine. This is the first vehicle section they do in this game, but it's like a late 2000s game, so of course they had to have this. But then you start to move up to this dam area where the gate's closed, and then you have to obviously move your way up to fight some hordes of enemies and hit a few switches to open these gates. This area is kind of long. It took me about 15 minutes to complete, and there's just some enemies that they put way off into the distance for no good reason that are pretty much impossible to hit with the guns I was using at the time, aka a shotgun, which, by the way, as far as I know, you don't have any way to switch your loadout on the fly, so if you just chose to pick a shotgun for a level you weren't anticipating, sorry. After mowing down all of these enemies in the area, I had a hard time finding where these switches were. I turned on the compass sometimes and it still gave me a little bit of trouble, but I managed to do that after a lengthy amount of time. And it's one of these things where you know you gotta hit this switch, then you gotta move down, then you gotta trigger this trigger, and then you can move through. And I think this level does this a couple of times. There's even a little video gamey spot where, oh, you can't cross this bridge because there's electricity, a live wire in the way, and you gotta flip the switch to turn it off. Yeah, that's really fun. Anyways, you keep progressing through that level, and then you enter this village area with like these dilapidated buildings. Is that the right word? I eventually came upon a garage gate, which was obviously where you were going to keep progressing. If you turn on the GPS, you could see like the rest of the room through the thermal. But for some reason, your beefy steroid-injected man meat of a character couldn't seem to open this gate up. There was no option to do it, so you were literally locked out of it until you fought these seemingly endless hordes of enemies. And then for some reason, the garage gate just explodes out of nowhere with no explanation. I don't know why they did this. Hell, they could have made this garage gate a wall, just a solid wall, and I never would have even thought of going up to it. Boom. I mentally wouldn't have been prepared to go in that direction to finish the level, and that would have encouraged me to venture off a little more throughout that little village area that I didn't really do. By the way, when you go through that garage door that seemingly just exploded, the game completely takes the piss and gives you another garage door exactly like that you're able to lift up. Wow. So that slowed down the gameplay a little bit. But then you start to move into this factory area, and this is where it just kind of seems like the developers, I don't know if they got lazy or if they ran out of development time or what the deal is. I don't know if they just weren't creative enough to make these levels more interesting and fun, but you just end up fighting these seemingly endless waves of enemies where they just pile them up all around you. You know what I'm talking about? Where you got to enter a room and you're just immediately getting shot from every angle. This happened to me a lot in this game, but most notably in the later half, and especially on the last level of the game, and this was infuriating. The game started to come down to RNG, and the only way you progressed was whether or not you just happened to get lucky enough to not get hit a certain amount of times by one person. But get to that again in a second. After you're in this factory area, you gotta run down to one room, hit a switch to open up a conveyor belt, drop rocks onto that conveyor belt, let it go down to another room that you have to enter, then you hit another switch to dump the rocks down on the floor, and I think it breaks the floor or something so you can keep progressing. All the while you're getting shot at by multiple people from every angle, so that's awesome. I was playing on the normal difficulty, and by the end of it, I really just wanted to be on easy because I swear, man, I was just taking so much damage. I couldn't help it. There was no amount of cover that could save me from the amount of bullets I was taking from every angle.
Salem, I'm hit! I need some help!
The main thing I want to mention here is the last level of this game, which is probably the second worst I've ever experienced. Same goes for the ending of this game too, which was really not satisfying. If I wasn't playing this for a YouTube video and I wasn't playing with a friend, I probably wouldn't have completed this game. I wanted to end it way before the final level of this game. You end up having to fight your way up to this guy on like the third level of this building, which, ooh, by the way, big spoiler, the guy that's an asshole throughout the entire game ends up being the bad guy. Ooh, never would have saw that one coming. But from the second you walk into this level, the game just does not give a shit.
Come on, I can't believe it. He's back from the dead.
No one's gonna survive that plane crash.
We did.
Well, he's coming to what we done.
You go down and you just have an RPG coming straight at you, okay? So you dodge the RPG, and no matter whether you get to the left or the right of the room, there's enemies immediately hit scanning you, just immediately blasting at you no matter where you're standing. And you try to take cover, you're just gonna keep getting shot at from every angle. Oh, and all the while you're doing this, there's little computer terminals on the side that you're supposed to be activating to clear your name, because of course there is more padding. And this whole area just screams not fun. And it's especially not fun when you're playing with your AI teammate who doesn't know to go to one side of the room or do whatever, and every time he grabs you to heal you because you're inevitably gonna get knocked down, he pulls you into RPG fire, or he pulls you towards a dude throwing a grenade at you, so he just gets constantly knocked down. And like I've been stressing, it really comes down to RNG. It's just a matter of rolling the dice and continuously playing it till you get lucky enough to not get hit that one time and have just enough health to keep progressing. By the way, there's two enemy types in this game. Shooty guy and shooty guy that you have to hit from behind, you know, that enemy type.
Turns attracting his attention and move in for the kill.
There's no boss battles in this game. You know when that wall exploded in the last level that I was talking about and complaining about? I was expecting some big boss fight to happen here, and Nope. At the end of the game, I was planning on having this big monumental showdown with this guy as a final boss. All he does is sit at the top of the level and hit you with a sniper that immediately knocks you down and takes almost all your health. And it just continues to do this until you get up to him. But he's just like a regular enemy, so you can just inevitably spray him down pretty easy once you actually get up to him. Nothing really special. Nothing really cool happens, and the ending is pretty unsatisfying, so I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil it here. You find out that you, as Salem and Rios, whichever one you played as, start their own independent contractor team after, you know, fighting against all these people trying to frame them. That type of shit. Their names cleared in the, you know, happily ever after, whatever. There really isn't any important story beats at the end that I can really think of that made it extremely worth playing to me. The story never really kept me engaged. The gameplay was never completely satisfying, and overall, I don't know, man, it was okay. I gotta keep in mind, I bought this game for $5, and when you're playing with a friend on co-op, you know, doing some classic couch co-op as you do, it's not a bad game. It's not a bad experience, especially for $5. It's something fun that you can sit down and play. You know, it's something a little bit different, you know? If you want a third-person shooter and you want something just a little bit different, this is a fun little co-op experience, but playing by yourself, there's not really a whole lot engaging here to keep you going unless you're just into really weird old games like me. One thing I gotta mention here before we wrap the video up is I didn't really learn my lesson from the first game. As I was literally completing the last level of this, Army of Two: The 40th Day, the sequel to this game, dropped in my mailbox. Perfect timing. So we're gonna be taking a look at that one. If you want to see my thoughts on the 40th Day, and see how it stacks up against this one, in my opinion, be sure to stick around because I haven't seen anything about that game. I'm going in completely fine, but completely blind. But I have a feeling this one's going to be a banger. I might also get some extra split-screen gameplay in there for the boys, so I think it's going to be a good one. Be sure to stick around for that. Thank you guys fuck. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one, but yeah. It's been C. Later. By the way, go watch my Cyberpunk video that I did on the PS4 version. It's probably one of my best videos, and I feel like it's pretty underrated. Please go give that a watch. I think it was pretty sick. All right, bye. Part 2 is done, baby.
Dap me up.
Dude, that's going in the video.
Army of Two! Army of Two! Wait, why am I looking directly at the camera? 3. Army of Two! Army of Two! Army of Two! Oh, you broke it.
I broke it.
Yeah, you already broke the case.
How?
It's chipped on the top now.